Welcome back to the S.U.R.E Parenting Podcast. This is the Ways We Mom segment where we learn from each other's motherhood journeys. Today, we have Melissa, and she has created an amazing game to help teach emotional intelligence. And I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your family.
All right. So I have two beautiful children that are grown now, and I homeschooled them. So they are functioning adults. So that's pretty exciting. My daughter just had my second grandson. So
Congratulations.
he's adorable. I held him for the first time yesterday. So I'm just happy and beside myself.
Oh, I bet. That's the best.
Yeah, I love it. And we live really close to them, and so it's fun to be able to take care of my grandkids when I can and help out there. And I'm just working on helping teach youth emotional intelligence and supporting parents.
It's such a powerful and very necessary niche. And I'm curious how you found yourself to into this position where this became so important to you, where you were actually seeking out more and more youth other than your own two kids to educate in this way.
Well, as I grew up, I grew up in a bit of an abusive home, and so I learned to hide my emotions, and that didn't work so well as I got older. I had a little bit of a temper as a teenager and knew that I didn't want to carry that into my family, but I also didn't really understand why I would have this hair trigger anger. And it wasn't until I started seeking out help as a young mom and I realized and put two and two together, it was because I was angry about what happened to me when I was younger, and I just had misplaced that anger. And so I grew up just pretty angry at myself for being angry. I don't know. And just felt bad about myself for that. Like that was a real weakness. And so as I did some healing work in the last couple decades, I realized that emotions, they color our lives. They're beautiful things. They have messages for us. And feeling emotions that we term as negative emotions does not make us a bad person. It just means that we have some kind of message coming through, and we get to take a look at that and see how to heal it and let it move through us. And I never was raised really emotionally intelligent, and my parents did the best that they could. They didn't have that teaching. And so as I've homeschooled over the last 2 decades, I saw all these phenomenal, beautiful youth who are gifted and amazing, and I want to see them, shine. And a lot of them struggle with the same types of addictions and distractions, and that just keeps them in their own little world. And I've grown up with, the pain from living with that, and I don't want to see them grow up with that pain. I want them to know what to do with it. So
that's so beautiful. And there's so many little pieces and nuggets I heard in that story, one of which is that if you're a new mom and you're struggling, you're not alone. Many of us, myself included, struggle immensely. And if it doesn't make sense to you, that's okay too. That's part of that discovery is, what on earth is this? Is it mine to carry? Can I let it go? What can I do to let it go? And that journey is something that we have been through. You are not up to your own devices. You can reach out and get support, whether that's from a church that you go to or from a therapist or from me. Or I'm sure that if somebody messaged Melissa and said, hey, I've got a 3-month-old, I'm losing my mind, do you have any advice? I am sure that she would be able to hear you and just let you be in those feelings, because they are valid. They are real. You're not crazy. It is that hard. And when we're coming with a history and with triggers, then there's kind of an extra layer of hard. And the beauty of this is that we can walk through that. We don't have to stay there forever. So I loved that. And I really loved too how you noted that your parents were doing what they could with what they had. They didn't know either. And I think that's an important part of this healing process, is that yes, like we carry this anger for some period of time, and part of accepting our imperfection in our flaws is really seeing that our parents also had those flaws, and we can choose to forgive, which means we release our need to punish them. It's not that everything was fine and they did nothing wrong. It's that we don't have to carry it anymore. And it took me so many years to not hate the word forgive because I really felt like it meant making excuses or saying, well, it's fine. It was okay. And that's not what it means to me. When I studied the etymology of that word, I learned that it means to release your need to punish them. And that I can do. I can take the lessons. I can decide what I never want to do. I can decide that I want to create a different world for my children. And like you created this wonderful, tangible tool so that parents and families and therapists and teachers could go forward and gift children when they're still young these tools that it took us into adulthood to learn. So I would love for you to share the name of your game and tell us a little bit about how it works.
All right. So I created a game called Emotion Commotion, and it's super fun. I learned through getting ready to teach a group of moms how to help their kids manage their emotions, that one of the best ways that we can teach is through play. And so I started thinking, how can you teach kids about emotions, and came up with this idea. Was really blessed with this idea, and created it in a couple of hours and started playing it with people, and it's really, really fun. So it's a game where you do an action and you have an emotion, and you do the action in the emotion, and people guess what emotion you're trying to portray. So it's really hilarious. There are songs to sing, and there are sayings, and there are noises of animals, and I don't know, do you want to see an example?
I would love to see an example, and then I'll tell you our funny haha when we open it.
Fantastic. Okay, so for instance, you just have the saying, can you pass me the bacon? Okay, so simple enough, but I'll say it in a few different emotions, and then
put me on the spot.
Yeah. We'll see how you do. Okay, so can you pass me the bacon? Can you pass me the bacon?
Sad.
Kind of sad. Very close
More
to
specific.
Specific. Oh, can you pass
nervous, uncomfortable, frightened.
To uncomfortable.
Anxious?
No.
In pain?
Yes. So it's hurt.
Hurt,
so in
okay.
pain. Yeah. Yep. But it can be a totally different card if you're like, can you pass me the bacon?
I feel like regal, like a king, almost.
Kind of. Yeah. Yeah, kind of. It's tuning into that energy. There's an intensity of emotions, right? We have sad, we have grief, we have, just a little bit of hurt. So there's like this intensity. So it's fun to like tune into like that intensity and get kids used to thinking about that and like, are you really dying?
The nuance.
Yeah. So, but that one was powerful.
Ah, I like it.
So this game is never the same twice, which is really fun.
Right. And each person that does it will portray the emotions differently.
Yeah.
So we opened it up and we looked at the first two cards, and it was to buzz like a bee, and then the emotion was contentedly. My 36-year-old husband did not know what that meant. And I was like, you're gonna learn with us.
Exactly.
Like, I don't understand, like, what does that mean? And I actually had a hard time explaining it without showing him, like, okay, well, this is how a bee would sound angry. And this might be how they sound content, where they're just at peace and they're happy and they're not like joyous and exuberant, but they just feel okay. They feel good. And it was just so interesting in like 1.5 seconds to already have this emotional conversation. And both my boys were there watching this unfold. So
Yeah.
I've already seen the potential to really have some amazing conversation. And my kids are little. They're 6.5 and 5 and 9 months, but she's not playing yet.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that ability to like expand your emotional vocabulary. When I played with the first little family I played with, I had a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old there that were playing. And it's so easy when they pick a card and they don't know what the emotion is to just explain to them. You know, when your brother has ice cream and you don't, and you really wish you had some, that's what jealous feels like. And so they start to get these light bulbs, and they have a better ability to tune in to what it is that they're feeling and be able to describe it more accurately. And like you said, adults learn. Like several families, 2 families in particular that I know of, the moms did not know what amused means. They have never felt it. This one family I was playing with, the mom was like, I've never felt this before. What's wrong with me? Like, nothing.
Nothing.
It just means you haven't really had that experience or that connection to that emotion for whatever reason, and you get a new experience, right? And so
Cool.
the other family with the mom who also didn't know what amused felt like, their teen daughter would just go around and say, Mom, this situation right here, this is amusing. So
I love it.
It's perfect.
So do you think there's an age where this is most impactful, or do you think it's always pretty broad? What have you noticed with people you've played with?
Well, I had, the younger kids and the youth in mind, just because that's who I've worked with and wanted to help. And so, I've played it with 4 and 5-year-olds, and they just get it. And it's super fun. Like, I love watching the parents watching their kids, exploring their emotions. It's really a beautiful thing. But then a lot of the homeschoolers that have now graduated that are still my buddies, it's their favorite hangout game. They love to take it. In fact, on New Year's Day, I had, I think, about 16, 20-somethings over, and we played the game for an hour, and then we got to my all play card, which I should explain. The all play card asks you to just sit in that emotion for 10 seconds and think about where you feel it inside your body. And then you share. So whoever picks it up first gets to share first. So maybe the emotion is nurturing. So being silent, thinking about where do I feel nurturing feelings? Like I probably feel it like in my heart, in my chest, right?
My chest.
And it's
where I snuggle my babies.
No, but it's at the same time as you're pulling them in, it's like an expansive feeling, like you just have this enveloping love, right? So we have all these 20-somethings discussing one particular emotion, and it started an 1.5-hour long conversation about emotions that they it started with this one question, but then they continued it and they started asking questions like, well, what's the emotion you hate the most and why? And I just sat back and just was like, I live for this. It was lovely. And then I played, at business retreats with women, and we just have a blast. So it's something you can just play, have fun, and just accidentally learn a whole bunch of things.
Absolutely.
But you can be very intentional with your family too. So really all ages have loved it. So that was a surprise to me.
Yeah, I feel like this is such a good family game because how often do we really take the time to connect and talk about emotions? Like we might do something fun, but usually in that moment everybody's happy and that's it. Like that's what like there's not a ton to talk about in that, about all the different range of emotions. And then when somebody's particularly angry, if it's the parents, likely there's not a ton of talking going on. And then if it's the kids, likely there's not a lot of talking going on. It's like, stop screaming at me, stop throwing things, like whatever, it kind of shifts into discipline mode rather than like that connection and understanding. And part of it is because everybody's in that fight or flight place. But if you have that firm foundation and you have all this vocabulary and you have these tools, it makes a difference. I have intended to teach my children a broader range of emotions than just, sad, mad, happy. Mm-hmm. And I can remember when my oldest was like 3, him going, I am not mad, I am frustrated. Enunciating every little sound. It was the cutest thing. And I realized like he was understanding the difference. It wasn't that he was just blindly angry. He was frustrated because he was trying to do something and wasn't being able to do it. And that is a different feeling. And it was really neat. And then my middle is very interesting to me. He's actually why I'm most excited about this game, because he hates talking about emotions, which was so different because my oldest just kind of accepted that and would talk about different feelings, and that worked for him. But my middle, you'll try to empathize with him and you'll say something, are you feeling sad right now? And he's like, I'm not sad. Oh, are you feeling angry? I'm not angry. I'm not anything. Stop talking to me. Okay, then. And, he's definitely one you just kind of hold space for. But I think that if he had more words and he could, and like you said, so my degree's in education, and then I had a further certification in early childhood. And it's 100% true. Like, play is the way to teach little kids. It just is. And so if I'm able to make it fun and it's not in a moment where he is stressed out, then he can absorb those different words so that when he is in those moments, he can really share what it is he's feeling. So he's the reason I'm like the most excited, besides just the family connection aspect. And of course, for my clients who are like, how do I teach my 8-year-old how to tell me what he's thinking instead of screaming at me and slamming the door, or my 16-year-old or my 22-year-old. I think that the possibilities are truly endless, and I can't think of a family that wouldn't benefit from taking a little bit of time to really look at their emotions, how they manifest, how they're different from each other. I think that's really interesting. You were talking about the all play card. And I know that for me, if I feel kind of like frustrated or anxious, it's like in the top of my tummy. But if my husband does, it's in his shoulders. It's a very different thing, and it's the same emotion. And so without really discussing that, like, how do you know? I know because we've been together for 12 years that if I rub his shoulders when he's stressed out, that helps. But did I ever really connect to where that's where he was holding his anger? Not really, but that's the kind of thing that this play, this game, this fun can lead to these really deep connections and exploration. And I kind of think it's magical.
Thank you. I love what you're saying. We have these emotions, and they're almost simultaneous, like what we're thinking about a situation and what we're feeling about a situation. And sometimes we let the thinking kind of control things. And if we don't recognize how we're feeling, allow it just is, right? We're feeling frustrated. And then find a way to move it through our body, then it gets stuck. That's why we have our tense shoulders. That's why we have our stomach aches. We get these emotions, these things that trigger us over and over again. And if we don't know how to release it, then we get them stuck, and it can cause pain, and it can cause diseases. And, if we don't deal with them long term. And so part of the happy accident of this game is just that it gives you some fun ways to release your energy. You're playing soccer, pretend playing soccer while you're feeling joyful. So you're doing a little bit of an exercise, you're getting you're working an emotion out, right? And so it can just kind of teach you that recognition, that allowing, that movement, all really seamlessly in a game. And then, oh, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, it also teaches you that you can create emotions with your thoughts. Because here we are playing a game and we're getting in touch and like, well, gee, I don't know. How do I feel reverent? Like, what does that feel like in my body before you have to, portray it? And so you teach your kids that they can bring emotions on, that they do enjoy, that they do want to spend time in. So.
And now that you've said that, I'm very excited for my oldest.
Can I tell you a story? There's a friend of mine who has a tween. She has 2 girls, and she has a tween. And she said she's struggles with sharing her emotions. I think she's just barely, possibly on the autistic scale, and she struggles with sharing her emotions. And it's usually coming down to, they realize she has lots of emotions when she's down on the ground having a fit. And she remembered that she had bought my game at a retreat, and so she got it out, and she says, this is an incredible game. She said, we finally had the chance to get my girls to play it, and they didn't want to stop playing. They had so many emotions we got to talk about, and it cleared many behavioral things that I didn't even know my girls were dealing with. She said, it needs to be in schools. So,
it does need to be in schools. I support that notion.
Yeah. And so I saw her in an event recently, and she was like telling me the details, just that, at this point they had this fantastic opportunity to play this game and talk about emotions. She said, now we just leave the game out. My kids come home from school when we were in school, and they'll just pick a card or 2 and we'll talk about it or just act it out. I mean, it's a game you can play for 5 minutes, a game you can play for 2 hours, I've found out.
I love it. I think that's amazing. And I think, so one of the things I teach is that we have different brain types, different ways of engaging with the world. And so what I really appreciate about this game is that it meets all the types. So the enterprising type is very physical. And a lot of times board games and card games, they're not interesting enough. They just have to sit there, and that's not what they like. But this gets you moving. This gets you really like in your body, which is where they thrive. And then you have the exact brain type, who's, this black and white thinker and really needs to grow and stretch and look at the nuance a little bit. And then you have the engaging type, who is super social, and like, what better way to be social than to learn about how the person next to you is feeling? And then the easygoing type is really very deeply emotional, which, enough said. So it just really fits every single type of child in your family all at the same time. And they get to essentially make it their own. And I see this changing so many families' ideas of togetherness. I really do. I used to teach first grade. I could definitely see doing this in a big circle in first grade. I can see, middle schoolers who are in that tough stage where they're starting puberty and they're just feel so misunderstood, being able to find that way of explaining themselves. And like, no, this is it. Like, this is how I feel, that empowerment. And for parents who are like pulling their hair out, like, I don't even get this kid. I used to know them so well. I know nothing about them now. Being able to find that again. There's just so many levels of this. And I feel like there will only be more discovery of the things that this game can do. It's amazing what you've created, really.
Thank you. And I do like what you were saying. We don't often feel very comfortable being vulnerable with our emotions. That's why we don't discuss it. We don't want people to judge us for it. We judge ourselves for the emotions sometimes. We don't understand them all the time. And so to take a minute to be vulnerable in the guise of a game, it just gets you practiced at doing that too. So I love that.
Absolutely. And I think, you're doing it in my audience, you're typically going to be doing this with your family, at least to start. So you are already in a safe place. And then you're this teenager who can articulate what they're thinking and feeling, and like how much healthier are your relationships with your peers and with your romantic interests. And I just, so much good. So much good. Now, for people who need to go buy this immediately, which is essentially everyone, I guess unless they already own it, but where can they go to get your game?
They can go to my Facebook group, Creative Family Connection, and just message me and I'll send you an invoice. My website is a little bit under construction right now. So
no worries. We will put your link for your group in the show notes and on the YouTube channel so that people can go and get it, because I really think that everybody should invest the time to have this level of connection and understanding with their partner, with their kids. I'm teaching a class called Parenting as Partners, and the premise of it is to really understand your partner's brain and your own brain. And I just think that we don't often take the time to really learn at that level who we're living our lives with. And we get so frustrated about different things that we're interpreting one way, but they're interpreting a different way. And a game like this, just, it has this fun and this levity to it, but then there's this really deep undercurrent too. And it's powerful. I feel like it's a very healing opportunity for a lot of families.
Yeah, I love it. It just makes me so happy when I get to play with anybody. So it's fun.
All right. Well, if there's anything that you could share with moms, mostly with young kids, in this audience, what would you like to share with them?
I think it's so important to allow your emotions to move through you through either release techniques or empowerment techniques. And you have this amazing opportunity to show your kids. Like I love just being honest with them and going back and just saying, look, mom lost it. This is why. And I'm sorry that you were on the front end of it. And this is what I can do, moving forward. But really give yourself a break, because you're human and emotions. I think you were kind of alluding to this earlier, but emotions color our lives because we have the emotions that we consider bad or negative, the emotions we don't love to sit in. We have those, and if we didn't have that to compare it to, how would we know what joy is? How would we know what happiness is? And so if you can embrace that in your kids, just remember that it's allowing them to feel true joy as they move through their emotions, and just give them some grace as well. I mean, I think we typically give them more grace than we give ourselves. So really give yourself some grace, and just realize, this is the best way to teach our kids, is to learn to move through it. So
I love that message so, so much. Thank you so much for being here and sharing what you do and inspiring all of these families to really take the time to connect in this special way. As I said, I will share your group link so everyone can come to you and get Emotion Commotion for themselves and their families. And with that, I will see everybody next week. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.